Hi, welcome. I would like to tell you about vSphere Auto Deploy. My name is John Liu from VMware Education. In this module, we're going to take a look at this concept called Auto Deploy, which includes important features like vSphere Image Builder, as well as the Auto Deploy service. What this is going to entail is setting up a centralized way to manage both ESX server images and the deployment of those images onto your ESXi servers. Our first lesson, we'll take a look at this service called Image Builder to go ahead and build and manage the images we'll be placing onto the ESXi servers. And then we'll take a look at what Auto Deploy is, basically a process to centrally image your ESX servers in several methods, whether it's stateless or stateful caching. Then we'll show you the steps in configuring Auto Deploy in our third lesson. So let's take a look at our first lesson, vSphere's ESXi Image Builder. This has been in the vSphere product since the vSphere 5 days, so it's not a new feature, but it's a really powerful way to actually create and build an ESXi image to be used by Auto Deploy, as well as through other means too. If you ever want to create your own custom ISO image, you can do that with Image Builder too. So we'll take a look at the purpose of Image Builder and how to use the vSphere client to create the ESXi image. So again, what is an ESXi image? Basically, an ESXi image is the culmination of quite a few different areas of the product that you find when you were to actually download the ISO image from the VMware website. The image is going to contain the core ESX server hypervisor, but the image will also include drivers. The image may include additional CIM providers, which are basically the providers for hardware management onto that ESXi host, and there may be plugin components. Now, when you download the ISO image from the VMware website, it will primarily be made up of the core hypervisor and drivers. You may need to add third-party providers for hardware management as well as plugin components. Well, to make this as modular as possible, the ESX server image has been organized into what we call VMware or vSphere installation bundles. VIBs for short. It's basically a packaging format that when a piece of software needs to be added to an ESXi server, it's going to be delivered in this VIB format, which will specify the other VIBs that it depends on, as well as any conflicts that it might have with other VIBs. And so there's basically the VIB package that represents the ESX server's base image. There is a set of VIBs that represent each and every driver for your ESXi server. And then you can also find there may be VIBs for CIM providers as well as for plugin components. So as we mentioned, the VIBs will simply define their relationships with other VIBs, and they will define dependencies as well as conflicts. There's no need to worry about an install order. It's really just a collection of VIBs that makes up a package. So things that we can do here is use the ISO image, and if there's any additional pieces of software that we need in an ESXi server, well, we can manage that with this component called Image Builder, because that's a way that we can then actually add to the ISO by adding missing drivers or adding missing plugins or adding missing CIM providers. And then once this image has been defined, it can then be either exported into an ISO, so that you can actually install an ESX server directly with all of your customizations all in a single ISO image, but it also can be exported into essentially Auto Deploy deployment format, where if Auto Deploy is to deploy this, it's not actually downloading or deploying ISOs. Auto Deploy is actually going to be downloading to an ESX server a compressed file. So the Image Builder is the main tool for doing all this. Basically what we have is you can take a collection of VIBs, put them together to represent a single image. That is called an image profile. Basically a definition of a whole collection of VIBs that need to be put together into the same image. And then that image profile is then something that can be exported into either an ISO format to boot and install an ESX server, or it could be exported into Auto Deploy format, which is basically a compressed file. In fact, if you were to go to the download page on the VMware website, you'll actually find that there are already two different versions of ESX. There is an ISO image, and then there's also Auto Deploy compressed image there too. It's basically an image profile for the ESX server's core hypervisor and its core set of drivers. So you can actually use that as a building block to add your own custom drivers as well, or any additional extensions or providers you need to have in your system. Now, to manage this Image Builder has a complete interface in the vSphere client, and there's also a complete Power CLI set of commandlets that can be used to manage your image. How you do this with Image Builder, you do need to first define something known as a software depot. It's basically a folder that has compressed files to represent all of the different VIBs and the image profiles you would like to work with. You define that image profile when you first enter into Image Builder service, and then you can then start adding the different VIBs to your existing image profiles, or you can even create a brand new image profile that would include the different VIBs that you need. Once you have your image profile in a condition that you're satisfied with, it is then time to then export it. Make it available either as an ISO or as a auto-deploy formatted image. So let's take a look at what the process is for building ESXi Image. Basically, what we'll need to do is start the Image Builder service, because it's not running by default, connect to the software depot, basically define it if it doesn't exist, create an image profile, right? You can import that right from the downloaded image, and then use that to generate the new ESXi image. So let's take a look. First thing is this service. The Image Builder service actually isn't running by default. So first thing you can do is open up the vSphere client, find your system configuration, and find the different services running on vCenter, and there's this Image Builder service that is disabled by default. Go ahead and enable the service, and then you can enter into the auto deploy section of the vSphere client. Basically, once the service is started, the drop-down menu will have a list of all the different attributes of vCenter, and one of them will be auto deploy. Now, auto deploy contains several tabs. There's a software depots tab, there's a deploy rules tab, there's a deployed host tab, and a discovered host tab. Auto deploy basically is responsible for these tabs. Image Builder is responsible for this tab. So by enabling the Image Builder, you only have access to the content that's in this tab. If you did not also enable auto deploy, those other tabs will basically be empty. And first thing you'll do is create this thing called a software depot. You do this after having downloaded an image from the VMware website, right? You're going to have downloaded an actual archive, right? A zip file essentially. And you use that to create your software depot, and will then have in there actually two different image profiles of ESX. There'll be ESXi standard image, and there'll be an ESXi with no VMware tools. Why are there two different versions? Well, because when you install ESXi, you'll either do a stateful installation, where you install everything on the ESX service boot drive, including VMware tools. But if you do a stateless installation, which is one really powerful feature of auto deploy can actually just download the ESX server image right into ESX server memory without having saving anything to disk. Well, if there's nothing on the disk, there's really no point in having VMware tools on that host, since the VMware tools isn't stored in an in-memory based environment. So you can have the no tools specifically for the stateless auto deploy. If that's the image you want to use for auto deploy, you can at this point basically export it. But if I wanted to modify or adjust which VIBs are actually part of the image, what you can do is you can clone that image. It will then show you all of the different VIBs that are part of it. And you can then either add to it, or you can take away, create your own custom image. And then when you're satisfied with what VIBs are in that package, you can then export that image profile. And then you'll be prompted to either save this as an ISO or save it as a zip file. Again, the difference is if it's an ISO, you're using it to install an ESX server right from an actual CD or DVD image. Whereas if you save it as a zip file, that's to be used by auto deploy. So we took a quick look at the Image Builder service, and we explained the purpose of the Image Builder and the use of the vSphere client to create an ESXi image. We'll take a quick break, and we'll come back and actually set up auto deploy in our next lesson.